Welcome to Dromalis in Larne. Beautiful surroundings here, and as you can see behind me, a very old building. The name Drumalis goes back to ancient times. It comes from the Irish derivative for a ridge or a hilltop, and also a small fort. So it really means a fort on the ridge, effectively. And it shows us that there was settlement here right through the centuries. There was a friary here at one time of what were called white canons, who were on a 15-acre site here. Then numerous owners into the 18th and 19th century. And the people who owned the house behind me were called the Smiley family. And the modern building is a conference centre and a retreat centre for the Sisters of the Cross and Passion. So there's a really fascinating history from ancient times right through to more modern times here as well, which we're going to explore. So please join me. Well, this is the modern part of the building. This is a retreat and conference centre, and it's operated by the Sisters of the Cross and Passion, who've been here since the 1930s. I came to Larne in 1906, and they acquired this fantastic site and property in the 1930s. Very impressive still in its architecture, and as we'll see on our journey, the architecture of the old and the new blends quite well. So from this lovely airy room with lots of light coming down, we're going to move into another room where we see some really fantastic stained glass by the artist Neil Shawcross, who's very, very well known. Again, this would be used as a conference room for meetings and conferences and so forth. The idea behind this as a retreat centre was that the Sisters of the Cross and Passion were dedicated to assisting young women that were seen as vulnerable in society, and also they were very keen on education for girls and so on. So this would have been a place where particularly women from Belfast would have been brought down for a retreat to get away from all the things in Belfast that were perhaps getting them down and not such good lifestyle. This gave them a chance to be here in a very placid surroundings, beautiful grounds outside to walk in and relax, and just to recharge their batteries. Particularly relevant in the 1960s and during the Northern Ireland Troubles, this served a very useful purpose then as well. And you can see some beautiful stained glass here which reflects the light in different ways, different times of the day. And it's just a very calm room, I think, a nice placid room. You can look outside and you can see the grounds outside, and right now we can see lovely daffodils out there in the trees, and down to Larne Loch and so on too.
Traveled far away to ocean blue and skies of tangerine.
So this is all part of the modern building that the Sisters of the Cross and Passion operate and continue to operate. And the story of them coming here is fascinating in itself. This house was sold by the owners, the Smiley family. It was owned by a man called Crawford for a short time, and then he sold it, and the Sisters of the Cross and Passion, who were down on the main street, they acquired this property. That was a remarkable thing, quite literally, in the 1930s in Larne, because there were still lots of community issues. So in order to come here as quietly as possible, effectively, they finished their school in Larne during the day, and then each sister brought their own handcart, came in different entrances into the estate, and ended up at the front of the house by 6 o'clock that night. And there's a lovely story of how, when they were bringing their handcarts up, this great limousine flashed past them on the driveway, and it was the bishop come to see that they were getting themselves established. So the juxtaposition of these handcarts that they were physically wheeling all the way up the main street, and him coming in his very flash car is really interesting, I think. So lots of stories attached to all of that. Since then, they really have become established in the town. They've played a very important part over the years. They were involved in getting a church group of interdenominational church groups set up, the Tuesday group, Tuesday Club, which helped to bring the churches together and helped in terms of reconciliation and how people saw each other in the town over the years. So they've played an important part quietly in the background, I think, and this site has been very influential in how that has all taken shape. So I think the new chapter of Dromalis has been a really interesting one as well. But we're going to go back in time to an older chapter. We're going to go back to the 1870s when the original house was built by Sir Hugh Smiley. He built it on this fantastic ridge which had been the site of ancient settlement, and he built it largely with the assistance of his wife Elizabeth and care, and she was from Glasgow. She was from a very wealthy family. She was an heiress to quite a fortune. They were thread manufacturers and they lived at Gallow Hill in Glasgow. And it was Lady Smiley's influence on the house which probably improved the architecture quite a bit. So we're going to go along into the old part of the house. There's a lovely little transition between the old and the new, I think, as you go through. No, that's it. I was going the wrong way. So again, you have some lovely examples of glass here, and the light at certain times of the day it's fantastic. It's all part of the relaxation at this site, and when you see here in front of you, fantastic views right over Larne Loch down towards Macramorn, and then you hear the water, which is always a relaxing thing, I think, to hear. As you come through, you can see the walls of the old house on my right hand side here, and this little route will bring us out into a morning room. Now the Smileys had come here in the 1700s. They'd come into Larne from Scotland, like many families in this area. In 1870, Sir Hugh Smiley acquired the site at Dromalis, and he built his house here in 1872, and there were quite a number of them dotted around these big houses. This is one of them that has survived in terms of its structure and its fabric over those years. And this little room is a morning room. It's just a fantastic room with the lined walls here. He married Elizabeth Kerr. The little fireplace has their initials carved on the mantelpiece and the mantelboard here. And you can just imagine sitting here. I like it because there's bookshelves in it, but all the carving, just every time you look at this room you see something different here with the carving. You've got the harp and crown, and over here you've got the Scottish lion, symbolise the Scottish connection and the fact that where they are now. So a really lovely room. It's not a very large room, but it's quite impressive when you look at it and when you just sit down and look around you. But we're going to see a few more of the rooms as well on our journey around the house. So we're going to move in towards the dining room. So this would have been the dining room, quite a spacious room, as you can see. There were the little bells that they would have pulled, the ropes to ring bells for the servants, still in the room. When you're looking from this room, you can see right out over the mouth of Larne Harbour, and it gives you a sense of why this would have been a significant place back to ancient times. And if there was a fort here, as the title Dromalis really tells us there was, then we can see why it would be here, because you have a fantastic view right over the mouth here of the loch, and you get a great view right around as well from this site. It's quite elevated site. So the fort on the ridge, the oldest settlement we know of, and then we know about the Friary and the White Cannons, and they were a sister establishment to the Woodburn Abbey in Carrickfergus, and also Dryburgh Abbey in the borders of Scotland as well too. And they were here until the Reformation. We're told the friars went to Ellen-Magee, but it appears that one of them continued to live here at the site. The new owner, Sir Moses Hill, must have turned a bit of a blind eye to that, I suspect. He was one in a line of owners then that would come down the line, and the most recent of those into the 19th century then was a man called James Agnew, a sea captain who helped to start to develop the port of Larne. Also James Chain, who was really the man who did develop the port in a big way, and at Larne Harbour, and most people are familiar with the Chain Tower, which is a memorial to him. And James Chain had sold part of his land then to the Smileys, and Hugh Smiley built his house here then too. And this dining room must have had some fantastic conversations in it over the years, but some of the more interesting ones probably relate to the Home Rule period. The Smileys were very strong unionists. Her husband died in 1909, and Lady Smiley was very much involved at the time of the Third Home Rule debate. She signed the Ulster Covenant, as did her daughter, and Sir Edward Carson, the unionist leader, would have been a guest here on occasions. So certainly in the run-up to what's called the Larne Gunnery in April 1914, there were probably some quite interesting conversations took place in this house when Carson was here. From this house, there was really an epicentre of what happened at Larne Harbour in terms of the gun running. Cars came through the estate rather than go through much of the town, and the estate was quite vast, so it took you right down towards the harbour. So a great convoy of vehicles came through. About 500 cars in total came to Larne on the night of the gun running, when the Ulster Volunteers imported a whole cargo of arms and ammunition to arm the Ulster Volunteers in their campaign against Home Rule. Very famous in local history here, and lots of anecdotes and stories about it from families that have come down through the years. Very few people owned cars back then, so it was quite an unusual sight. And to see 500, it was about half of the cars that were registered in Northern Ireland at the time came to Larne that night, so quite an amazing event. Afterwards, in July 1914, Lady Smiley opened her grounds for the Central Antrim Regiment of the Ulster Volunteers to come for a big review, which was presided over by Sir Edward Carson. So again, very historical events happened here. And this room, where a lot of the gentlemen would have dined and would have talked about perhaps those plans, would have been interesting to have been a fly on the wall back then. Now, when we leave this room, we go out into a lovely little hallway with some fantastic stained glass windows again, which I'm going to show to you. This is your entrance to the house, effectively. The front door is just across. There's a little hallway there where you come in the front door, and then a reception room here. Again, beautifully lined with timbers and fantastic windows, which are, for me, the main feature of the room. And they depict England, Scotland and Ireland in terms of the figures on the windows, and beautiful stained glass. The original house was quite plain compared to the developments that occurred as it was built and expanded, and Lady Smiley was a key person in that process. Sir Hugh Smiley had built quite a plain house. She started to add to the architecture of it and put in a little tower at the front and lots of different elements. And she also got a man called George Walton, who was from Scotland and a contemporary of Rennie Mackintosh. And Walton came here and he designed the stained glass, also some of the features in the house, which are still visible today. And it's the best example you can find of George Walton's work. So people have come here who are students of Walton, and students of that genre would come here just to see the work that Walton carried out here, commissioned by Lady Smiley. So this house once even had a private golf course in the grounds. It had upwards of 30 bedrooms, all of them named after Scottish islands, and you'll still see that today if you come to visit. And there's also other local names from Larne in some of the rooms too, which is really fantastic. So a really impressive house. When you wander around it, you just get a sense of the scale of all of this, and beautifully decorated with some fantastic stained glass, which in places such as this, with the light coming in, really shows to full effect. But we're going to go across the area towards the bedrooms, and we're going to visit Sir Hugh Smiley's shower room. The windows up there too. So this is quite amazing when you look at this particular room. This is Sir Hugh Smiley's bathroom and shower room, and Sir Hugh died in 1909, so this is quite amazing for its time. You've got all different taps here. You have a shower tap, you have a wave effect, you have cold spray, hot spray, cold plunge, hot plunge and waste. So amazing engineering for its time. Now when Sir Hugh passed away in 1909, there's a very strong reminder of him in the modern Larne of today, because up at Larne Cemetery, the Smiley plot has a massive boulder which came from the shore at Larne, and it was hauled up by horses and cart back up to the town cemetery. And it's a boulder that he enjoyed playing on as a boy on the shore. He climbed up onto this boulder, and so it was decided afterwards that this would be his memorial. So there's a very strong reminder in the town itself today of this quite unusual monument to this man, who was a key figure in the town. And Lady Smiley then continued to be until she left. She left and she died in England in 1930. But the Smiley family down the line still continued to keep an interest in the town that was so important to their family, and that their family was so important too. and this house helps to epitomise that connection as well. So we're going to go along the corridor, explore more, because there's lots more to explore. Hopefully you will come at some point yourself and explore during one of the open days here at Dromalis and see this fantastic house for yourself. So let's join me for a little wander along another corridor. So there's another wee feature, just it's fantastic in terms of... Well, this was one of the nursery rooms at Drumalis. You can see this lovely little fireplace. It was really here to heat milk for the children in the evening time, and there's lovely tiles, original tiles here of Aesop's fables around this little fireplace area. So imagine being a child here in this house with upwards of 30 bedrooms and lots of corridors. What an adventure you'd have if you were let loose. I'm sure it was all a bit genteel and you didn't get to run amok, but every now and again it might have happened, who's to say. So that gives you a sense of just the variety of rooms here, and the variety of the house itself, and the different styles that you can see, the different types of rooms, and all of these fantastic bedrooms, which are still used because it's a retreat and a conference centre, so they're all still in use whenever things are happening in the house. So I'm going to take you along towards the front of the house now, and hopefully you have enjoyed this little excursion. Oh wow, what a house, what grounds, it's just fantastic, and I just get this sense of it being right up on this ridge overlooking all the town here. You can hear the dull hum of traffic away in the distance here, but it is just a dull hum. You can hear much more the birds all around us singing at the moment, and it's just a fantastic place in terms of the grounds and the estate, and of course the house itself. For me, it's a bit of a metaphor. It's a little island of calm in the midst of everything around us here. You've got a very busy harbour, very short distance away from us, and of course you've got the bustle and the hustle of the town just around us as well too. But here is an island of calm. It's very peaceful. It's a nice reflective place, and hopefully you've enjoyed our tour around the house. You've seen the variety that the house has to offer. So many rooms, so many different stories, going right back to the Smileys and then to the Sisters of the Cross and Passion. So if you get a chance, you'll hopefully come here and visit and see for yourself, which is the best way to explore Dromalis.